Hi. I'm going to have a look at a few nights ago on the 7:30 report. Here's the link to the video. Lee Sales, she's the anchor woman. She presented a show about, yes, breaking the silence over genital mutilation horror. And yes, I consider genital mutilation, of both sexes to be wrong. But you'll find when females, some prominent females, like yes, well, some prominent females don't sort of acknowledge that male genital mutilation is a problem. Anyway, Lee Sales was the anchor woman. That's the presenter, isn't it, Jess? But she wasn't the actual reporter. The reporter was Caro Meldrum Hanna. Now, Lee Sales, in her introduction and her little bit at the end, she said basically what a terrible thing female genital mutilation was, and how it might be called circumcision, but it's still mutilation. Sales and the other girl too, the reporter, didn't make any mention of male genital mutilation. That is not unsurprising. That is not uncommon. Now, Lee Sales should know all about sexism. For example, she was called in the past couple of months. Someone called her a cow. She was called a cow, and there were in the media there was talk about sexism, and the fact that she was called a cow was sexist. She'd been called a cow, but presumably Lee Sales would know about sexism, and yet she didn't speak up, or she didn't make any comment about male genital mutilation as something that should be, that should be abhorred, that should not be allowed. But let's read on anyway. These notes are from the ABC website, the sort of transcript affair of the video. And as I said, the video, yes, there it is. You can watch it on the ABC, on YouTube, yes, on the ABC's own channel. Video, up October the 30th, 2012. Yes, video. Women speak out on female genital mutilation in Australia. ABC News. Across the nation, young girls are being mutilated in a brutal and barbaric practice that most Australians struggle to comprehend. I ask, but what of boys? Yes, what of boys? Yes, a brutal religious practice. I'll just read out the bits that I've highlighted. I won't read the whole article. I'll just read out bits that I've highlighted. It says here, a brutal religious practice. So I ask again, what of boys? There are Jewish boys that, yes, they could be considered to be subject to a brutal religious practice. We want to be, if we're going to discuss culture and cultural sensitivities of Islamic ladies and everything. And yes, Islamic boys are subject to genital cutting. That could be called a brutal religious practice. Australian Aboriginal boys of some tribes are subject to genital cutting. That could again be called a brutal religious practice. This says more than 120,000 migrant women in Australia have suffered genital mutilation. Well, that's a lot if it's true. But I doubt that those 120,000 genital mutilations were done in Australia. Yes, cultural. A brutal religious practice. So it can be considered a cultural practice. And then, look, I'm neither Jewish, I'm not Islamic, and I'm not of Aboriginal descent. But I was subject to the medical tradition that goes back to Dr. Kellogg. Dr. Kellogg, yes, in Victorian times and everything, popularized the idea of, circumcision as a anti-masturbatory thing and so-called hygiene, hygienic, etc., etc. And by the time I was born in the 1950s, it had become a medical and cultural tradition, if not a religious tradition. I was subject to that circumcision for tradition and tradition of medical tradition and cultural tradition that had become ingrained by that time. And my mother, she was subject to all that medical propaganda. Back then they sort of twisted your arm basically and told you to genitally mutilate your kids. That's what they did. I can forgive my mother for being so ignorant. Yes. It says here there is no data held on how widespread female genital mutilation is in Australia. But, yes, the reporter didn't mention there is data to say how widespread male genital mutilation is. There is data. There is data to suggest how widespread male genital mutilation is, but nowhere in this program was male genital mutilation mentioned. Sorry about the mosquitoes. The genital mutilation is carried out by women on girls between the age of 4 and 10. Boys in Australia, I make the comment, boys in Australia are done at various ages. There are clinics in Australia that even do teenage boys. I've seen their adverts on the internet. It is a crime in Australia and is not sanctioned by the Quran. Well, if you go to some Islamic websites, Sunni Islamic websites, they talk about how Allah thinks that female genital mutilation, well, he thinks that male genital mutilation is a good idea, but he isn't so he's not so compulsory about female genital mutilation. But they talk about all the benefits. I must do another video on that Islamic website and how they think that it's quite a good thing for hygiene and various other reasons for women to be genitally cut. 7:30 understands the women chosen to do the cutting. Sorry, I thought it was a snake. Understands the women chosen to do the cutting often do not have any medical qualifications. Well, my doctor was qualified and he botched me, although a circumcision is already a botch. But he botched my circumcision as well, and he was qualified. So big deal. Does it matter whether they're qualified or not qualified? It's still genital cutting. It's still genital mutilation. It's kiddie fiddling, yes. But yes, all male genital mutilation is a botched job. No mention of that on that program. That program was all about female genital mutilation. It just acted as if that's a terrible thing that, of course, it's women who are doing it to women, but nevertheless, one gets the impression that it's sexism. It's something that men are doing to women, and it's all sexist, and women should be protected. But there was no mention of protecting little boys, was there? The procedure can range from a small cut to a girl's clitoris to the entire removal of the genitals. Yes, there are various degrees of female genital mutilation, from pin pricking and genital nicking to, yes, just about cutting out everything and stitching up everything. And feminists tend to always look at the worst case scenario for a female genital mutilation. But in point of fact, a lot of female genital some types of female genital mutilation are less damaging than male genital mutilation. In extreme cases, the wound is sewn up to leave only one opening, the size of a matchstick, for urination and menstruation. I make the comment there, accentuating the worst type of FGM here, but of course some types of female genital mutilation are less damaging than male genital mutilation is to a male. Yes. They are aware this is happening in Australia, said, who is this? Yes, Imam. I'm aware that male genital mutilation is happening in Australia. So there. And more boys are being genitally mutilated in Australia than girls are being genitally mutilated. More boys have been genitally mutilated in Australia than girls ever have been. It is also common for the women doing the cutting to charge a fee for their services. Well, my doctor got paid too, didn't he? My doctor got paid, and he did a bum job, didn't he? He did a botch up. There's still a male genital mutilation industry in Australia. That's what I've said. I've said my doctor got paid, and there's still a male genital mutilation industry in Australia. There is. Type into Google circumcision, Sydney, for example, and you get a whole lot of clinics coming up. The figure could be around 2,000 to 3,000. This is what women are paid to do that form of genital mutilation. $2,000 to $3,000. They're not qualified at all. I say so, qualified to botch. I mean, my doctor was qualified to botch me, was he? Went to university and learned how to botch me, to kiddie fiddle me, to damage my genitals for life. He was qualified. He botched me. Big deal. People get paid to botch. Big deal. I mean, it's happening to boys too. Boys should be defended. I keep making this point over and over again. These are women from a village who have migrated to Australia and have access to a razor blade and are considered to be an elder, a wise person in their community. I make the point, male genital mutilation, mutilating doctors are considered role models too, yes. Doctors are considered role models in our society. They kiddie fiddle. They damage boys, don't they? They cut up boys. I was cut up by a role model, a doctor. Yes, a doctor. And he would have been paid a lot of money, too. Yes, they interview a girl called Zareen from a Muslim sect known as the Dawoodi Bohras, who originates in India. In India, female genital mutilation is called traditional cutting. Well, I've already made the point that the cutting of me was traditional. It had been brought in and popularized by Dr. Kellogg, and was it Dr. Graham of Graham Cracker's fame anyway? It was all popularized as a male genital mutilation was a medical and social tradition by the time it was done to me in the 1950s. And there was also that notion, the cultural tradition of be like dad. Not that my dad was circumcised, because my dad wasn't. But for a lot of people, when it's multi-generational like that, it's to be like dad and so forth. This girl, she was pinned down and mutilated. So was I. I was pinned down and mutilated too. I was pinned down. Yes, they use circumstraints to do that. Nice word, isn't it? Circumstraint. You restrain someone while you're circumcising them, so it's a circumstraint, a sort of instrument of torture, like in what is it? Yes, what do you call it? A horror place, the torture chamber. Yes, yes. There's Willy Wagtail. Listen. Yes, the poor girl. I'm not laughing at that girl. I don't believe in female genital mutilation either, but I make the point that I want to ask why male genital mutilation is always overlooked. I mean, female genital mutilation is against the law. Male genital mutilation is perfectly legal. She pinned me down. Yes, I was pinned down. I make that point. She says, I don't remember seeing anything. But after that I felt a very sharp pain. I still remember that. I still remember the pain. I don't remember the pain, because I had it done to me as a child. Now, it could be argued that it should be done if it's going to be done to girls, it should be done when they're little babies, too, so they won't remember. I don't remember it being done to me, but I've seen little baby boys scream as if they're being tortured, It was done to me without anesthetic. I've seen little baby boys on YouTube having it done to them without anesthetic, and they're screaming their little lungs out. It's horrible. I don't remember, yes, but I do live with the evidence. I do. If it had been done to that girl in her infancy, would she have remembered? Probably not. I'm not saying though that it should. I'm not saying that it should be done to a girl or that it should be done in her infancy. I'm just drawing comparisons between male genital mutilation and female genital mutilation. Yes. Now there are genital mutilation charges are going to be. There are court cases next week. In a few days' time, on this coming Wednesday, there are court cases of alleged genital mutilation. The sex crime squad was brought out. 5 weeks ago, New South Wales police arrested and charged 8 people with the alleged genital mutilation of 2 girls in Sydney and Wollongong. The arrests, this is the funny bit, the arrests followed an anonymous tip-off to the office of the New South Wales Child Protection Minister, Pru Goward. I mention funny bit because Pru Goward is the New South Wales Child Protection Minister. She's the big sex discrimination expert, having been someone who served as Sex Discrimination Commissioner at the Human Rights and Equal Opportunity Commission for about 4 or 5 years, I think it was. And yes, she's the New South Wales Child Protection Minister, Pru Goward. She's clearly interested in protecting girls, but I make out it's a bit comedic, because as the New South Wales Child Protection Minister, what's she ever done to protect the genital integrity of boys? Has she ever moved? She's a Liberal, isn't she? Has she ever moved a private member's bill to outlaw male genital mutilation? I don't think she has, and I don't think she will be going to do that in the foreseeable future, will she? She won't. Our Pru is the New South Wales Child Protection Minister. I would think that if he were the Child Protection Minister, he would take steps to defend the genital integrity of boys, not just girls. Okay, girls are protected legally by federal law, I think, But yes, you think Pru Goward would be taking steps as the New South Wales Child Protection Minister, and is she the Minister for Families too, and Community or something like some grand title like that? What's she ever done to protect the genital integrity of boys? If you know that Pru has spoken up in defence of boys, let me know, because I'd like to know. Yes, what's she done to protect the genital integrity of boys? And the Human Rights and Equal Opportunity Commission for which she worked is quite the Sex Discrimination Commissioner's Office is quite a sexist department. They won't even speak up for boys. They won't speak up for boys on grounds of defending genital mutilation. They won't. They won't. They won't. Yes, and I'll leave it in the sidebar, a Sydney Morning Herald link, an article about Pru in Parliament focusing on sexism and matters of public, yes, Pru, there was a matter of a female parliamentarian made some sexist comment that was sexist and misogynist, and Pru said that, that woman, that MP, should be focusing on matters of public interest. I would think that Pru Goward should be focusing on the matter of public interest since she's concerned with sexism. If she's concerned with sexism, it is sexism to genitally mutilate little boys and to take steps to defend. If you're going to defend the genital integrity of little girls, as we do, if you don't defend the genital integrity of little boys, you are, in my opinion, sexist. And as far as Pru Goward hasn't taken any steps, as far as any big steps, to defend the genital integrity of boys, and she is the former sex discrimination expert, and she's the New South Wales Child Protection Minister, I would call Pru sexist in that regard. If she isn't going to move a private member's bill to defend the genital integrity of boys, and she's a parliamentarian, isn't she? Then she could be called sexist, couldn't she? She mouths off whenever a female genital integrity is endangered, and I don't blame her for that. I think she should defend the genital integrity of girls, but you know, to what effort does Pru go to defend the genital integrity of boys? I call that all comedy. I call that comedy because she's the New South Wales Child Protection Minister. And little boys are still being genitally mutilated, aren't they? They are. The secrecy which this is carried out makes it very difficult for police to collect evidence, Ms. Goward said. It is unlikely that this is an isolated incident. Well, there's no secrecy about male genital mutilation, is there? It's you know, it's no big secret, is it? It's no secret. There's no secrecy about male genital mutilation, and it's legal. There are plenty of boys done, and they're not isolated incidents, are they? They're not. You get these feminists like well, I'm not saying Lee Sale's feminist. I don't know enough about her, but she seemed to, judging by her expression and her introduction and her comments at the end of the show, one got the opinion that she didn't think. She thought that it was genital mutilation of females, and that she said, well, it was called circumcision. It was mutilation. Well, she didn't comment about the protecting of boys. And Pru Goward is, well, one considers her a feminist. It doesn't really, because she's always going on about women's rights, isn't she? As a former sex discrimination expert, and I make the point again that the Sex Discrimination Office is supposed to defend males as much as females. But it is comedic because, yes, these people would appear only to be interested in defending female genital integrity. There are fears the practice of female genital mutilation spreads much wider than this one case suggests. I say that all girls and all boys should be defended, not just one gender. To defend only one gender is sexist. Yes, to speak up for any one gender, doesn't matter who you are, whether you're the minister for, what is it? The Child Protection Minister. She calls that child protection. Not speaking up for boys, and that's the Child Protection Minister. Yes, You speak up. If you're the child protection minister, you defend the genital integrity of both genders. You stop both genders from being genitally mutilated. If you're partial in that way and you only defend one gender, or at least, even if the law is, you take steps to change the law, don't you? If you aren't sexist. If you aren't sexist, you take steps to change the law to defend little boys. You at least speak up for little boys. Hopefully you'll introduce a private member's bill to protect the genital integrity of little boys. In September, West Australian police arrested and charged a couple. Yes, that's in the news too. It was a an alleged traditional cutting ceremony. As I said, mine was traditional. By the time I had mine, it was a traditional medical practice and a whole lot of quasi-medical, quasi-hygienic reasons for it, all basically anti-masturbatory, anti-sex was the reasons for them, basically. Yes, I mentioned cultural sensitivity because, yes, people want to be like Daddy, don't they? Mine was a medical tradition. It doesn't matter if it's a religious tradition like Jewish, Islamic, or Aboriginal, or the female Islamic tradition. They're traditions, aren't they? They're traditions. Cultural sensitivity is one thing, sex discrimination law and sexism is another. I make the point that, well, we'll just take Islamics for example. Yes, people are going on about little girls being subject to some types of, I don't say all Islamics practice that female genital mutilation, but I don't say all Christians practice snake handling, do I? I don't. But yes, some Islamics practice female genital mutilation, some practice male genital mutilation. You hear a lot of words spoken against female genital mutilation. You don't hear anything spoken. I don't hear anything spoken much by Islamics about male genital mutilation because it's a tradition and culture for them. 7:30 has been told that girls are being mutilated in the town of Katening, home to a large Malaysian Muslim population. Yes, I make the point, boys are and have been mutilated in lots of towns. Yes, all towns all over Australia. Towns all over Australia boys are being mutilated in. So, girls are being mutilated. I don't dispute that, but the fact is, to harp on about female genital mutilation when boys are being mutilated, to defend girls and not to defend boys is sexist. Transforming lives. At the Royal Women's Hospital in Melbourne, a discreet clinic is transforming lives by reversing extreme forms of female genital mutilation. So how do you reverse it? How do you reverse it? You hear about men having foreskin restorations. Do we stretch out a new clitoral hood and a new clitoris? Use weights to stretch out a new clitoris? I've heard people so arrogant about their genital cutting of their boys on YouTube that they think, well, if my child doesn't like if he doesn't like being genitally mutilated, he can always restore it when he's older. Yes, that's what they say. But in point of fact, what you've done is you've cut, whether it's male or female, you've done a huge amount of neurological damage, reversing extreme forms of female genital mutilation. Well, fair enough. They've got to try and make some repairs. I can see that would be fair enough. The clinic sees around 25 women every month. There are a lot of men around, that have got botched circumcisions. I'm one of them, and, they are not few in number. I'm not saying that male circumcision is necessarily as bad as the worst form of female circumcision. I'm not saying that. The broader aim in Victoria is to break the cycle of mothers subjecting their daughters to the procedure. I make the point here that my mother had me done. That was a cycle, wasn't it? There's no mention of boys here. This is all about female. It's female-centric, isn't it? It is. People tell Ms. Muhammad that female genital mutilation is a cultural practice that is hard to move away from. Well, I say ditto for male genital mutilation, including Islamic male genital mutilation. They say it is women who are pushing it. So, why do I get the feeling from this is from Western feminists? I've always got the impression from Western feminists that women are oppressed, and female genital mutilation is oppression of women, and in other words, female genital mutilation is the fault of men. That's always the impression I got from Western feminists. And furthermore, Western feminists, this is going for decades now, they always trivialized male circumcision, and they would even go so far as to say, oh, men don't lose very much feeling. I mean, how would you know? How would a woman be able to say that? But women did say that. They said, men don't lose very much feeling from circumcision. How would she effing well know? How would they effing well know? It's women who are pushing it. So I say, this cannot be due to oppression from men then specifically, can it? Female genital mutilation. So we get all feministy about female genital mutilation. One gets the impression it's something that men are doing to women, but it's not. That's not the whole story, is it? These women have been through an experience that we can't even imagine. I can imagine. They can hardly urinate. Their legs may have been tied together, so the labia actually fuses together. Well, that's genitorture, isn't it? Torture of the genitals. I had no anesthetic. I've seen how little male babies behave when they're being genitally tortured. I've seen how they behave on YouTube, how they scream, how they just sort of go into shock, basically. That can't be good, and those boys should be defended from that. Will Pru Goward defend little boys from that, I wonder? I'd like to know. One woman, Samira, had been surgically reopened. She says women in Victoria being stitched closed again. Female genital mutilation is torture. So I make the point here again that there are grades of degrees of female genital mutilation, and pinpricking, for example, is not as bad as the pinpricking of a clitoris. Does far less neurological damage to a woman than male circumcision does to a man. I'm not saying that any forms of circumcision are better than the other. I think all circumcision for both genders should be outlawed. Brainwashed by their families who say it's good for you, it's important, it's part of our culture. So, this is Islamic culture of some sort. Male circumcision is part of our culture. Male circumcision is part of our culture, whether we're supposed to be like Dad, whether it's for medical tradition and cultural tradition as it was with me, or whether you're Jewish, or whether you're Islamic, or whether you're Aboriginal. Samira is strongly against the cutting of girls. I asked, how does she feel about male genital mutilation? She wasn't asked on that show. No one commented about male genital mutilation. While everyone on the show, and usually on this type of show about female genital mutilation, everyone is shocked about female genital mutilation, and they all go, what a terrible thing it is. And the article begins with horror, doesn't it? It's titled Horror or something. But, yes, they don't ever discuss male genital mutilation. It's always taken for granted that female genital mutilation is a bad thing, but it's always part of the story that female genital mutilation is illegal. It's part of our culture, Samira said. Well, I say, so is male genital mutilation. It all depends on the culture, the family, the religion, the background. I say, all this goes for male genital mutilation too. Now, the tag words for this article were crime, Islam, religion and beliefs, child abuse, women's health, women, Australia. See, no mention of men's health. We're all shocked we're all shocked, aren't we, by female genital mutilation. I think it is shocking, but we're not shocked by male genital mutilation. I'll just close by saying Pru Goward is New South Wales Child Protection Minister. WTF, I won't swear, WTF. Pru Goward is New South Wales Child Protection Minister. She worked at the Human Rights and Equal Opportunity Commission as Sex Discrimination Commissioner, which I've said in other videos is a sexist office. The most recent woman, what was the recent commissioner, was her name Elizabeth Broderick. She behaved in a sexist manner too. I asked her to defend little boys, to speak up for little boys, and she basically said she wouldn't, basically. That's sexism. It's a sexist office, and Pru Goward worked at that sexist office. Did Pru defend boys when she was boys from male genital mutilation when she was Sex Discrimination Commissioner? If you know about Pru speaking up in defense of the genital integrity for boys when she was Sex Discrimination Commissioner, please let me know. I'd like to know. I've Googled it before and haven't come up with anything. So, Pru is the New South Wales Child Protection Minister. I don't think she's going to bring in a private member's bill to protect the genital integrity of boys, is she? She's not going to, is she? She's not. And she's the Child Protection Minister, our Pru Goward. We'll see how those court cases go in a few days' time, and I'll report back on them. I've got to turn this off now. See you, bye. It was nice to talk to you about this subject.